Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Raise Capital Legally podcast and YouTube channel, where we talk about topics of interest to real estate syndicators and fund managers, with an opportunity for live questions and answers before we sign off. I'm Krisha Young, the Business Development Director for the firm, and this is attorney Kim Lisa Taylor, founder of syndicationattorneys.com. Before we get started, please note that audio and video from this event will be posted on our podcast platform, YouTube channel, website, and social media, and will be made available to the public. You can ask questions at the end of the broadcast by raising your hand or by typing it in the Q&A. So all the information discussed during this event is of a general educational nature and should not be construed as legal advice. Today, we're so happy to have our special guest here, Marcin Drozdz. Did I say that right?
Marcin Drozdz.
Marcin Drozdz is an active investor and entrepreneur who has sourced well into 9 figures in private capital to help fund several businesses and acquire over 1,600 apartment units. Marcin is an expert in the art of raising capital, deal structuring, and answering the question, how do I find real estate investors? He also teaches how to build performance teams and develop the right growth mindset. Welcome, Marcin and Kim. Hello.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're super excited. So I met Marcin at the Best Ever conference in March, and I was impressed. He got a copy of my book. I got a copy of his book, which we're going to be talking about.
Hey, look at that. That's right.
Copy of this book, and we're going to have Marcin tell us how to do that later on in the show. Let's just kind of get started. Tell us about your background and how you got started in the capital raising business.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. And appreciate obviously the opportunity to be here, ladies. It's a lot of fun to talk about real estate and capital raising till the cows come home, right? So I started in the business about 20 years ago. The first deal I raised for was actually for a gentleman by the name of Ken McElroy. Ken McElroy is guy who wrote the book, The ABCs of Real Estate Investing. He's Robert Kiyosaki's real estate advisor, MC companies. They're about $2 billion in assets now. And, I learned the business, I'd like to think the right way, raising for a guy like Ken. That was 07, 08, I think it was. And at the time, capital markets were in flux and equity was really hard to come by. So, at the firm I was working with, we were really well connected there. So we ended up working with Ken on a whole bunch of different projects. I'd spent a few years there. And, before that, I was buying houses and doing little fix and flips. But when I finally got into the big game of 200, 300, 400, plus unit apartment buildings, syndications, funds, I was a young man at the time, early 20s, and just opened up my eyes. I was just like, wow. And everything I've done since then has kind of been as a result of learning that initial skill set. And, I've had the good fortune to work with a lot of different entrepreneurs, not just in real estate, but operating businesses, institutional investment, a lot of things in between. And, it's kind of like my life's work, my passion to just figure out, how to find people with money, how to connect them with the right opportunities and kind of put those things together. And, that's been the game that I've played.
Excellent. So what do you think was your main inspiration that inspired you to become an investor and an entrepreneur?
I was unemployable. I was grossly unemployable, maybe incompetent in some regards. You know what? I always thought this is to a fault. I always thought I could do things better than the way they were presented to me. And, sometimes I've been right, sometimes I've been wrong, but regardless, I've kind of stuck with it. So I think that made me naturally unemployable just early on. I mean, look, I did the school thing. I never told you this, Kim, but my initial intention was to go to law school, become a lawyer and do the corporate law thing. I couldn't do it. Like I had a scholarship. I went to in Canada. I'm Canadian, up in Canada in Toronto. There's a university called York. The joke now is, if you could use a fork, you can go to York. But There was a time where the Osgood Hall and the legal system there was a really maybe still is a very well-renowned school process. But I went in, I had a scholarship, and it took me like 2 weeks to be like, oh, what is this? Like, get me out of here. Because on the side, I got my phone blown up with texts from contractors. We're flipping houses and doing all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, and then it just sat there, and I'm like, I could make more money with this one flip than I'm going to make as a potential whatever, fill in the blank, lawyer, whatever thing. And I'm like, I can't do this. And that was kind of the trigger point for me. But I'd always done entrepreneurial things before then. I just thought I was going to eventually grow up and fall in line with this corporate world. But when I started to go down the path of the school for it, I very quickly figured out it wasn't going to be a fit.
Well, there's been a lot of entrepreneurs that have gone down that path and figured out,
Yeah.
hey, the traditional educational system is
Mhm.
I can kind of, go off and do better on my own.
Yeah. I mean, it was, I was looking around, and I mean, look, the irony, of course, is I work with a lot of lawyers and accountants today. Very few of them are as business savvy as you guys, because most of them are very in their box, and, they got their lane and whatnot. But the irony is that, today I work with a ton of these people, but I couldn't be one of them, because I realized that a lot of these people, that my classmates at the time, they were thinking of pensions and 4 weeks vacation, and they were planning like the partner, like just the things that they valued, I didn't care about. So to me, that was a massive disconnect. And then the straw that broke the camel, well, this was the thing, because I took a business class as well. The straw that broke the camel's back is at the time, I thought for you to be a business teacher, you had to own a business. Like, to me, it was inconceivable that you could teach something you'd never done. It's like, how are you going to teach, I don't know, how are you going to teach operating on a patient if you've never done it, right? So to me, business was the same thing. And I walked up to one of the instructors, and I wasn't trying to be funny. And I asked him, I said, so what business do you own? And I wasn't trying to be an ass. I wasn't trying to be anything other than inevitably how it came across. I came across like a smart ass, but I wasn't trying to be one. And he goes to me, he goes, what do you mean? I go, well, you're the business instructor, international business, or whatever the class was. So what business do you own? I thought maybe he had like a logistics company or something to give him context. He goes, I wrote this book. And I looked at him, I go, based on what? He goes, and then he starts rattling off some degrees and stuff. I go, right. And then I didn't argue with him anymore. But in my mind, I'm like, but you don't own a business. So that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. And, ever since then, I, subscribed to the school of hard knocks, right? So actually doing the stuff.
Good for you. Well, yeah, I love your story. Well, the other part of your story that I really love is that your immigrant spirit. So,
Yeah.
we've had so many clients that have done really, really well that came to the United States believing that it was the land of opportunity, and they just forged ahead. And I think a lot of us, when we're born here and we're trying to, be successful, we get stuck in this quagmire of, oh, it might be illegal. Oh, there's liability. I could get sued. Oh, I could lose everything. And we get stuck in this, this fear, where when I meet immigrants that come from other countries, I find out that, they don't have that. They're just like, hey, this is a land of opportunity. Anything is possible. I'm just going to do it, and they end up just going ahead and doing it. So, do you want to share with us anything about your journey with that, with respect to that?
Sure. I mean, I was born in communist Poland, right? It's not communist anymore, but that was 40 years ago, or 40 plus years ago. It was a very different world, Eastern Europe in particular. So, my dad, he got arrested for smuggling corn into the country, like in Poland. He had a side hustle where he smuggled corn from, it was Czech Republic or whatever it is, and Poland was communist back then, so you couldn't have a business. Everything was government mandated, controlled, rations, all that stuff, right? So, and when they caught him, they told him that he had two choices. You go to the military for 10 years, or you can go to prison for 10 years. Well, he didn't like either of those. He was a young man at the time, had a young kid. I was a few months old at the time. And so he and my mom fled to East Germany, literally on a moped through the forest, like in the movies, literally just scrapped. And it wasn't until I was 4 when I was finally reunited with my family. My grandpa literally snuck me out of the country in his car and drove me across the border, kind of hush hush. And, I was 4, we were finally reunited. And then when 2 years later, we came to North America here. And, like you grow up with this mentality where there is no plan B. In other words, anything you do, you work until it works. Like it works. Like there is no not working. It's just what is the way it's going to work. And that mentality, to your point, I think is lost on a lot of people when they wake up in the world of, oh, this is this, and you don't see and again, I didn't have the war story where I grew up in a war-torn country, but I have other friends that literally left war-torn countries. So when they come to America or they come to other places, like to them, the concept of risk is bullets flying over their head. So what do you mean LLC versus S Corp? Like, who cares? Let's figure it out, right? Like am I going to get shot? No. Okay, great. Let's go. Right. So it's a different, it's a different, assessment of what the risk is, right? And I think that mentality, that fearlessness, to an extent, I think and that's, to a lot of reasons, that's why America's so great, is because you have these people coming over that have that mentality, and they see it as an opportunity, right?
Yeah, I've just had so many clients that have come from other countries with that mindset. So I like to just kind of remind people, think about that. What would Marcin do, in this situation? Would he, pick up the phone and call this person, or would he be stopped by fear? Make sure that you're just kind of thinking through that when you get stuck in one of those places, figure out a way to move ahead, think about that immigrant spirit. You can be that too.
Yeah.
Krisha is also from Canada.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, from Toronto. I actually went to York briefly.
Oh, that's why you're
Long,
laughing then, because you
yeah,
heard the
long
city,
time
right?
ago. Yeah, yeah, I did a little some psychology courses, but I
Okay.
didn't stick it out. But yeah, that is why I was laughing at that for.
Yeah. Well, you'll appreciate this. So when we landed in Toronto, we landed in this neighborhood called Roncesvalles.
Yeah.
Roncesvalles, for those of you who know, is a very Polish, Eastern European neighborhood. And my first night, we were in a house. There was two other families in the house. We rented a room. Like we didn't really have much to, a few suitcases, whatever. And literally, I remember we had a mattress. There was a mattress on the floor, and we didn't have the bed cover. So in Poland, one of the things of high status is like a really nice starchy tablecloth. Those are like really high. That's like class. Tablecloths, like really nice ones, and crystalware. Those are like status symbols in Eastern Europe. So of course we came over with nothing but some clothes and some crystalware and some cloth. Those are the things that were considered high status back in Europe. So I share that because that first night in Canada at the time, we're sleeping on a mattress on the floor on a tablecloth, and it was starch and linen. But it's better than that. So I remember sleeping on this thing. But what I remember more is 4 a.m. or 3 a.m., my dad hits the alarm on the ground beside us in the mattress, and he gets up to deliver newspapers. So my dad, master trained mechanic, brilliant man, entrepreneur, got up literally in the country for 24 hours. He got up at 3, 4 in the morning to deliver newspapers. And it was because there was no plan B. So I saw that as a baseline. So for me, the concept of not getting off my ass to do things was just inconceivable. And then my mom, a pharmacist, medical degrees up the wazoo and whatnot. She's working at a thrift store and making at a donut shop just because they don't speak the language yet, right? So it's like, here are these highly competent, skilled people coming to a new country, and it's like doing whatever it takes. So what was my excuse? Nothing. I'm out selling newspapers at 9 years old, 10 years old, picking up golf balls at a golf course, like just doing whatever, just to get the idea of going to my parents and asking them for money to buy something was going to give it to me, but I never wanted to. I always wanted to contribute. I never wanted to take from it, right? So it was you grew up different.
That's an amazing story. I just love those immigrant stories, because I think they're so inspiring. And if we can all kind of capture a little bit of that and say, all right, let's just get past the fear. If we just came here and got dropped into this country from somewhere else, what would, we have $10 in our pocket, how would we make it work, right? And I think you're a shining example of how that can happen. You just have to take a big gulp and do it, right? Just get out of bed. Want to, but do it anyway. All right, well, tell us about, you say you've been able to source well into 9 figures in private capital for funding businesses and acquiring properties. Tell us about, that process and,
Happy to. So for some context, the first couple of deals that we did, We did with Ken and MC Companies and a few other providers there. The first fund that I actually created was in 2011. It was either late 2010 or 2011, but we did an 8-figure equity fund, and we were buying, it was still the fallout from the 08, it was 07, 08 financial crisis. So we put a bunch of capital together, and we were buying medical plazas in Arizona, actually. So Mesa, Chandler, Goodyear, a few markets there. There were, half empty medical plazas. I mean, it was carnage. It was pretty bad back then. But the tenants that were left were anchor tenants like pharmacies or, prosthetic limb manufacturers or optometrists or people that had Medicare, Medicaid basically paying the bill. And they're not going anywhere. So because we had the money in the bank, we did a blind pool. So we raised the funds before we had the deals lined up. And that's one of the things that I'm a big proponent of, because if you have the track record and you have the team, you can show investors that there's an opportunity, and that by them subscribing into it before you have the deal, you can actually make better deals. We were literally buying half empty medical plazas, and we were paying for the remaining NOI on those buildings. So for those who understand what that means, is we were basically buying buildings for 30 to 50 cents on the dollar. It was nuts. And I thought my only regret from then was that we didn't do a 9-figure fund. We did an 8-figure, because in my mid-20s at the time, I'm like, oh man, we raised all this money, we're going to be rich. Well, we could have. I thought it would take us forever to spend it. Well, no, that was actually the easy part. And we did quite well there. And from that project, I'd gone on, and I learned about capital raising in operating businesses, equipment, consumer services businesses, lots of different verticals. And what I found was that in and outside of real estate, the formula for capital raising effectively is the same. I mean, obviously, you need your lawyers and your PPMs, you need all the different legal documents, but the underpinnings for how to create interest in the marketplace and how to position yourself and how to walk someone through call it the sales cycle and the investor cycle, it effectively is the same thing. Now you'll have a different avatar that will want to invest in your real estate development versus your multifamily acquisition versus your tech startup versus whatever. You'll have different people, but the process is very similar. And to me, that 20 years into it now, it's that's kind of been the thing that I really like paying attention to. And just to more directly answer, Kim, like everything from that $10,000 initial investor to my largest was $100 million commitment on Wall Street for one deal pre-COVID. There's a lot of similarities to it. Your depth of structure and governance and technical knowledge and your ability to prove out that what you're doing and your boards and your all that stuff, it increases, but it's all based off a very similar premise. You just go deeper. That's really all it's been.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because
Sure.
you mentioned you jumped into a blind pool fund, and that's not something I usually recommend for my clients, especially when they don't have experience in that.
Right. Well, my operating partner had lots of experience. It's the only reason we were able to pull it off. Yeah, that's a big caveat. If I didn't have the strong operating background, my partner had the strong operating background, that would have been an impossible feat. Just because I, at the time, had some track record, but nowhere near the kind that was required for that. So that I'm actually glad you brought that up. Yeah, 100%. If you don't have that, if you don't have the background, hopefully you can surround yourself with people that do. But then it's even easier to then first use that deal as the crutch, because you need to, especially if you don't have a track record, that deal will be the crutch with the people that you have around you.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I always recommend, is if you don't have the experience that you need for the asset class you're trying to buy, then bring someone on your team for the first few deals. Or if you're going to do a blind pool fund, you've got to have somebody that with that strong track record. And then you can talk about, here's our team, here are the people that we have. And you don't have to have the specific experience. You're basically leveraging off someone else's experience.
Oh, yeah.
That got started in this practice area. I met my mentor, Gene Trowbridge, who had experience in the syndication world, and I learned from him, and went from there. So I recommend that.
Yeah, and this brings it full circle to what you were saying before about that professor at university. Like, tell me what your experience is to teach business, and he couldn't do that. And so you just like lost kind of respect for him in a way, you know, from that conversation, because you were like, how can I actually learn from you if you don't have that boots on the ground experience, you know? And it's kind of
Yeah.
like we're kind of almost saying the same thing here. It's like, in order for investors to believe in you, there needs to be some sort of experience for that confidence to be there.
You make a really valid point. I frame things with our clients and even internally when we look at launching a fund or a deal or whatever it is. I always look at it from the context of what is your unfair advantage? In other words, what are the things that you're uniquely qualified to speak about, to demonstrate competence and proficiency in? And then really important part two to that is stay in your lane. So in other words, if you're cognizant of the fact that you're really good at, for example, asset management or acquisitions or capital raising, then really lean into that thing, but don't try to pretend to be everything to everybody, because smart investors see through that. Because the reason why they have $1 million to invest is because they made multiples of that somewhere else. So they obviously know what to look for. And actually being self-aware of where you lack is empowering, not something that is a liability. It's actually an asset, because when you approach somebody to potentially partner or work with them, if you can demonstrate to them your competence in a specific area and actually have the humility to say, so look, I know I'm really solid at this, but what I lack is this. And here's where I think you fit. Boom, 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 boom. And then you can tie that together. Number one, that other person, that operator or that person that's really good at the thing that you're lacking, will recognize that you understand the game, will know where they fit, will know where you fit. And together, actually, as long as you can cast a vision big enough that encompasses both your visions, then you can actually move mountains together. What Kim and Krisha, what you guys probably see is probably sometimes the opposite, where people have these illusions of grandeur, as I like to call it, where they think that they flipped, call it a 32 unit, and now they're ready for $1 billion fund. And they're, it's just like, and you probably try to nudge them towards, getting partners or whatever. And they're like, no, I don't want to, it's going to be my deal. And you're just like, how do you want me to put this in the PPM? Like, what is like, you're going from, you raised $1 million and now you're going to raise 100. You're changing nothing internally. You have no governance, no boards of directors, no nothing. And what you think investors are going to say? Yeah, let's go. You're delusional.
I already know I want to go to one of your training events. I want to hear more. And
I go off on these rants all the time. Kim, you have no idea. My team never knows what I'm going to say, because I don't even know what I'm going to say. I follow where things, because once you've done it so many times, right? You just follow the room and you follow the audience, and everything I do, I never even put notes together, because it's just like, whatever. Like, let's see where this goes.
Masterminds there.
Yeah. But the one thing that I will share in regard to the unfair advantage, because that the reason why the unfair advantage is such a great starting point for everybody on the capital raising side is because once you're clear on what your unfair advantage is, it's really easy to cast that vision where people fit with you. And then your unfair advantage also makes it easier for you to be able to attract investors. So the book, the Unlimited Investor Leads book that you were talking about, like, just the ability to be able to lean into your strengths is what makes it easy for you to then create, call it a lead magnet, or call it a webinar, or investor funnels, or whatever it is. Because when you speak on a topic that you're a clear authority on, then people will listen to you because the evidence supports the things you're saying, right? Like, if I put a cooking book out there, nobody would buy this thing, because let's just say, I got all the apps for cooking. Let's just call it that. Okay. I'm a one finger cook, right? But I have no credibility in that domain, right? Car repair, no credibility in that domain. And it seems like such extreme examples, but the problem is that a lot of clients that try to go out and raise capital, is they're coming at it from the totally wrong angle. Like, they're not positioning themselves in the context of their strengths. They're trying to take what they're trying to accomplish and then jam themselves into it and position themselves in the context of what they think this thing needs. And the problem is, it's not sincere. It's not authentic. And even worse, if you actually do have a good deal, but you haven't put the right structure, the right team into it, what ends up happening is you end up leaning on the deal, and you become a commodity, because then all they see is the deal and they don't see you. It's like on Shark Tank, where how many times have you seen, you know, one of the sharks go, I love your business. I'd like to pay 100% for it. Let me buy it from you. Well, why do they just want the business and not you? Because you didn't build any value. They just see the business, like the thing is the thing. And in our context, that's bad news, because then what makes you different than a broker?
Right.
You know, and that's where I see guys get skinned alive, because they don't create any deal. They don't create any leverage. They don't create any value. And the reason why you don't create any value is because you're not positioning yourself to your strengths.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what about passion? I mean, you're clearly passionate about this. You know, I think that that can go a long way when you do feel like a little, you know, you're not very confident. You don't feel like you have all the right skill sets yet, but you've put together your team, but you're the one that's going to be talking to investors. How do you think passion plays into that? You know,
I think I think the most important thing, this is a very boring answer, just so you know, but I think the most important piece to the whole passion or motivation thing is I have a poster here in my office, and it says competence creates confidence. So ultimately, if you are competent in something, you can be confident because it's what you know. So how I develop my passion or my enthusiasm is through my competence. Like when I say that this is my life's work, like I literally see it as a reiterative process forever. I'm not like trying this and then trying something else. And then like, this is the thing that you will see me doing for the rest of my life. Capital raising, deal structuring, putting teams together. Like this is the lane that I want to live in, and just continue to gather resources and context and skills and, you know, things from the universe and ideas and marketing trends and everything, always in the frame of this. And when you can find that this for you, whether it's acquisitions or asset management, or, you know, maybe you want to do something different, charitable, whatever it is. But as soon as you kind of frame out your life, then things get really simple, because everything in my world is in relation to this. You know what I mean? So it's really easy to be competent because, pardon me, it's really easy to be confident or passionate because I can talk for days on end, unscripted, on this thing, because everything I look at in the world is in the filter of this. So, and the enthusiasm just comes out because it's just part of my world. Now, if you ask me something about, I don't know, fill it in, there's very few other topics I can speak about actually intelligently, right? So I'll probably have more questions for you than any comments, because I'll be the student. And I think where somebody can develop their passion is to really just go deep on something. I think a lot of people just dabble in stuff, right? They just think that it's the quick hit. It's the, oh, now it's Airbnb, now it's storage, now it's crypto, now it's this, now it's that. Well, I mean, I'll share this with you. So there was a guy when I was in my maybe fifth year of the business. I spoke to a gentleman. He was in his early 70s at the time, and I was talking to him, and he was so like brilliant, but he never made anything happen anywhere. And I say brilliant because he was well read, and you probably know the type of person I'm talking about, Kim. Like you talk to people where you're like, he has so much potential, or she has so much potential. And what I learned from him, it was like he lived like this quiet life of desperation, because like when I talked to him, it was like he jumped from thing to thing, from thing to thing. And I literally asked him about basically his life story, and he told it to me. And it was like 50 years of like jumping around. I'm talking about like back in the 70s, commodities. Then he was doing this. Then it was like the telecom thing. And then like it was almost like you go back in history of like what the big things were throughout history. And it's like he kind of jumped from thing to thing to thing. And he blamed it on luck and timing, but as I listened to him, he basically did the same thing in every business. He never really dug in. He never really, you know, tied himself down to how he could add value. And he was just he was just jumping from what he thought was going to be the next thing and trying to time it properly. And that was sad.
yeah, you said something. I mean, I completely understand that, and I've certainly met people like that. You
Yeah.
know, really got to get good at one thing,
Yeah.
and you know, expand that. And then if you want to dabble out into other things after you've gotten really good at that one thing, then that's fine. But get really great at that thing. I mean, that's been our practice. We're a niche practice. We, you know, focus on these securities offerings, and you know, we're really good at this. If we want
Mhm.
to now expand into other businesses, which we do, then we're going to bring on the people with that specific expertise, so that they're the ones that can handle those offerings and can help people with that. So yeah, I like that. You got to dig in and you got to tie yourself into a specific skill set. Make sure you get the best you can at it. So how do you get the best you can at it? Education, right?
Yeah. Well, and do it. So I look at everything from a sort of a first principles basis, right? I mean, and I think an example of that is when you think about first principles, what ends up happening is you stop using all the assumptions that here's how this industry works or here's how this works and why, because we've always done it this way, that kind of stuff, right? So when you bring, that's actually what Elon Musk credited when he developed the space rocket for SpaceX. He created disposable or reusable rockets as opposed to disposable rockets. Well, how did he do that? He came to the premise that why is space travel so expensive? Well, rockets are expensive. Well, why are they so expensive? Well, because we need new ones every time. So by challenging why we do it this way, initially, he came up with the idea of, well, what if we could reuse the rocket? Well, that's never been done before, yada, 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 yada. And then because they innovated that and they solved for that, they were able to do what they do now. And so anyway, bringing that full circle into capital raising, I look at, there's really, on a first principles basis, there's three major hurdles, and your viewers or listeners can really kind of dig into this and get some context. There's three things that anybody who's trying to raise capital typically struggles with. It could be all three or it could be one of them, and either way, it's a leaky bucket. The first one is positioning your offer to the marketplace. So properly positioning your market to your deal to the marketplace, so that you're actually appealing to the person that will likely buy your deal. Because you don't want a lot of looky-loos. You don't want a lot of, oh, that's really great. Tell me more about it, tire kickers, all this stuff. So how are you positioning your deal in the marketplace? How is it being received? That's the first thing. Because 95% of somebody's marketing efforts actually, ironically, should go into the first 5% of that correspondence. Because if you can't get past the first 5 seconds or 5 minutes of engagement, it doesn't matter how superior your mousetrap is, no one cares. Today, we all have, what is it, TikTok brain, right? We have 20 seconds and you're scrolling and like you have the attention span of a squirrel today, right? So that first 5 seconds of engagement is the most valuable, like real estate you could possibly occupy. So position your your deal in the marketplace is one. Number two is actually creating leads. So actually getting people from, hey, that's interesting, to engage, to actually create leads. With our company, we have thousands of leads per month, like actually people subscribing in between 1,000 and 2,000 people a month, and it's on a very minimum budget. So that's the second piece. And then the third piece with your capital raising effort is actually having a structured process to conduct your investor meetings, where you can actually convert those people, whether it's new investors or existing investors. If you're not having a formal process when you're trying to put someone through the process to qualify them, the discovery process, make sure they're a fit, make sure you're a fit, setting the right expectations. If you don't have that last piece in place, which most people don't, then even if you knock it out of the park with getting attention and qualifying, bringing people in, if you actually can't put them through the process and reinforce the experience that they perceive you to give them through your marketing or through your ads, if that's not consistent, then you'll have a massive disconnect. And literally those, on a first principle basis, it's literally A, how you position your offer, B, how you drive leads, and C, how you actually convert. It's not more we try to make it all complicated, but those are the three things. It's really all it is.
Yeah, I agree.
And a lot of those things are really daunting for people that don't understand it. So they really need to have someone like you who can guide them to do the right things and not do the wrong things. We
Well,
always talk to people who are, first deal chasing institutional investors.
oh
You know,
man,
such a
you'll get left at the altar 99% of the time with those guys. That's the game. And then they'll be on the other side to pick through your carcass after. That's just that's the way it works, right? If someone was magically going to write you a check for 5 million or $10 million and make your dreams come true, what leverage do you have in the transaction? And the answer is zero,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. They own you, you work for them, and they call
100%.
it.
That's assuming you even get the check. And look, I'm not saying you don't pursue the big checks, the 5 million, 10 million, $25 million checks, but I can tell you, even the biggest guys I know that run billion-plus-dollar portfolios, in addition to the institutional capital that they now, court and get access to, they still have their $100,000, $200,000 investor pools. Why? Because this is what keeps these guys honest. The fact that you have options is what gives you the ability to have leverage.
Yeah. The less you need them, the better
Yeah,
your level. That's right.
100%.
So, and it just kind of translating that into, what any of our listeners should be doing is don't spend your time chasing after, I call them whale investors, and I liken them to Moby Dick and the wake of destruction that he ultimately left behind, this whale ultimately left behind, when
Yeah.
this, and like you said, picking through the carcass. Don't do that. 5 or 3% of your time should be spent talking to those people, and the rest of your time should be spent talking to $50,000 and $100,000 investors. Because the more of those you have, the less you need those people, the less you have to be beholden to them. You can easily say no, thank you, I don't like that offer, or let's negotiate some better terms. Because the other side of that is they also need the investments. Right. So if your deal is good enough, you can push back a little bit, but you
My
skin in the game, and everybody has this misconception. Well, they want me to have skin in the game. Well, your skin in the game is you and your investors, right?
yeah,
You and your investors, not just you personally. It's what do you bring? So if you're going to deal with a preferred equity investor or family office or somebody like that, you need to already have like half the money already set up and in place, and then they'll start talking to you reasonably. If you're
yeah.
going to we do 100% of my deal, well then they're going to own you, and they're going to be able to call all the shots, and they can
I,
give
I call I call it blessing your deal. If you're looking for them to bless your deal, you've already lost. So literally, if you're showing up like kind of hat in hand, like, hey, what do you guys think? Then the frame is the power dynamics it's not going to work. It's not going to be a good conversation. You'll have no leverage. You'll have no capacity. And again, I don't mean this maliciously, but the way you want to show up to any investor meeting is, look, I'm doing this anyway. I thought it was a good idea for you. Do you want to come?
Mhm.
yeah,
And if that's your frame, like this is happening, we're going here. I thought based on what we talked about before, you'd want to come on this trip with me. What do you think? And that's a different, but I'm doing this anyway. And in truth, your actual investors, especially your like legitimate passive investors, the plumber that's got a 250K potential investment, the dentist, the doctor, the warehouse worker, whoever it is that's going to write you $100,000 check, they want to see that you're going to do this anyway, because they're if you're calling them asking them to almost bless what you're doing, you need a cheerleader? Like, no, like you need to show up, you need to show up ready to do business. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
yeah, call it take it or leave it offerings. It's like, hey, this is what we're offering, and if you've pre-qualified them as you should, like you said, part of that investor development process is getting to know those people and understanding what they are looking for and what is a good fit for them, and then only offering them things that are a good fit for them. So, if you don't spend a lot of time, trying to sell the wrong thing to the wrong people, then you're probably going to have a lot more productive efforts with your capital raising. All right. Well, so Krisha, you want to go ahead and just maybe talk a little bit about some of our offers, and then as we get a little further along here, we're going to let Marcin talk about how people can get his book, and then we're going to open this up to a live Q&A. We've got a few questions in the queue already, but yeah, Krisha, go ahead.
Yeah, this is fascinating. I love all of this discussion. All right, so in case you didn't know, we actually have two books on raising capital legally. One is for beginners, and one is for more advanced capital raisers. If you would like us to mail you a copy for free, then excuse me, just text the word syndicate, SYNDICATE, to our phone number at 844-796-3428. So text the word syndicate to 844-796-3428. You could also go to our website, syndicationattorneys.com, .com, and follow the links on there as well.
Excellent. Yeah, and we would love to send you a copy, but also we haven't really publicized this yet, but this one is available on Audible. So if you want to just listen to it instead of read it, then it's there. And both of them, of course, are available on Kindle at Amazon. And the best way to find them at Amazon is just type in my name, Kim Lisa Taylor, and both books will come up. Yeah, we think if you're a beginner, this is a really good step-by-step how to syndicate. And then you're also going to need to have Marcin's book on how to attract investors, because, it's a two-faceted business. You got to figure out what you're doing, learn how to do it, get the right coaches to teach you what to buy, what not to buy, figure out your asset class, figure out your niche, put together your team with the right skill sets. And then you are also going to have to spend a lot of time developing relationships with investors. So Marcin, why don't you tell everybody how they can get a copy of your book?
Sure. Yeah, no, happy to. If you guys just want to email me, Marcin at marcindrozdz.com, feel free to send us an email. We can send you a digital copy there. Just give us your contact information. We can do that for you. If you want to buy the physical book, Amazon is the best place. This book really, guys, is about finding, creating an environment where people are showing up to your meeting, not wondering if they're going to invest, but when and how much. And that when and how much conversation versus if conversation will save you hundreds of hours of agony and pain. And, I'm sure, Kim, you've seen it where people are like, oh yeah, they're definitely going to close. They're definitely going to close. And they're still talking to them 3 months later. They're definitely going to close. Well, the problem is you end up spending a lot of time with people that you just didn't flush out properly. So again, this book is a really great resource. It is an Amazon bestseller in a lot of different categories, so I recommend you guys pick it up. The digital version is free. We're just like Kim. I'm not trying to make a fortune out of selling books. I think it's just good information that gets out for people, and that's a good starting point. Also, if you send us the email, we actually have a digital course that is tied to this book as well. That's free. To actually give you a primer on how to actually execute a lot of these things here. So,
well, I think I'm going to sign up for that. I don't know about you, Krisha, but
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Look at how skinny this book is. Like, how much of a time commitment is that going to be for you, and how much value is it going to give to you in your life and your capital raising efforts? It's going to be, just unlimited, the amount of value that you're going to get from this book. So highly recommend you email Marcin, because then you're going to get access to his free course, and you're going to get access to other things he's doing. And I'm pretty well sold on becoming a follower of Marcin, because he's one of the smartest people I've talked to about capital raising, and I've talked to a lot.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is really awesome. I think.
Again, what's the name of the book? I'll type.
My book, Unlimited Investor Leads. Yeah, if you just type in Unlimited Investor Leads on it. If you want the physical, I like physical books. So if you guys want the physical, go on Amazon. You can just pick it up there. Or if you want the digital version, I can give you a copy if you just send us an email. The one thing I'll add on this, Kim, for you guys, is the book is, you don't have to read this book like a textbook. Like, you can literally, as I said, there's 3 parts. It's positioning yourself in the marketplace, cranking new leads, or actually closing deals with investors. Depending on where you think your weakness is or where the gap is in your business, just literally open up to whatever chapter is relevant in that context, and you'll get things from here that you obviously talk to Kim, talk to your lawyer, make sure you can implement these things legally, because I'm confident you can, but make sure you do it legally, obviously, and you should be able to get results in real time.
Excellent. All right, so let's just kind of go on to maybe one more question, and then we're going to go to some Q&A. We've got quite a few listeners. We've got a few questions that I know people are anxious to ask you. So let me think of from our, we didn't get through all of our questions because we were having such great discussions, and like you, we kind of just keep following down the rabbit hole. But one of the things you do is you talk about building high performance teams, and how do you go about that? How do you know who to get on your team? Because we certainly meet a lot of people that get the wrong people on their teams, and then they end up spinning their wheels. How do we avoid that?
Well, I like to, so there's a few answers. One is, there's actually a book that I'd recommend to everybody. It's called Code of Honor. It's an older book. I think it's about 25 or 30 years old. And code of honor is sort of like building a framework of beliefs and things that you all ascribe to as a business. It really sets the culture for you. So I'll give you an example. Our code of honor, we have 10 things that we consistently believe in as a company. One of them is, leave people better than you found them, never be needy, follow one course until successful, who, not how, that kind of thing. Like, so as soon as you get your core beliefs as a team, you have those as your core principles. And the powerful thing about a code of honor is you build it with your executive team or with your team. So if you don't have one in place, you literally build one collectively that everybody agrees these are the beliefs. These are the things that we all agree are important to us as a team. And I think what that does is it creates clear accountability internally within your people. And it's not a function of you having an awkward conversation. It's just, is your behavior in line with our beliefs? And that becomes a really easy conversation because everybody knows what's expected of everybody. That's a really good starting point. Now, beyond that, when you're looking to hire people, you look for things that show you that people that are coming on board have demonstrated living their life in accordance with what you believe is a culture internally. So that's a big thing for us to build the team. And the information that somebody needs to do their job is important as well, but the attitude and someone's belief system is something that I'm not trying to change. Like I'm not trying to indoctrinate you into my way of thinking. I'm just looking for people that see the world the way I do. And it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just the way we see it. So I'm looking for people that see the world the way I see the world. So, and one of the things for us, so just to give you an example, is I'm a big believer and proponent in Stoicism. So Marcus Aurelius, there's a book called The Obstacle is the Way, What is in the way becomes the way. So there's a lot of things, a lot of evidence that I've found in the world that kind of solidifies how I see the world. And so depending on who I'm interviewing or the context of the conversation, the more of those things they're already aware of, or even better, they're actually telling me about as examples of things, then the more it tells me that we're aligned as people. Because the technical stuff, you can watch some videos, we can teach you some stuff, like within reason. If I need an accountant, I need you to have an accounting degree, right? But but beyond certain things, I'm just looking for people that see the world the way I do. And by the way, that applies on the investor side as well, because what ends up happening is when your culture transcends inside to the outside, that's really when you won, because then your investors become your fanatics, because they'll bring you more people like you, like them, and they'll actually bring you a certain type of human to your environment. And then what happens is you grow, and I'm 20 plus years into it now. So it's like you have to start creating an environment where you protect that culture, because everyone else knows what it is. And you as the leader, if you don't act upon what your stated culture is, then you become inconsistent now, and then you start to create cracks. So that's the thing that I pay attention to the most, is making sure that everyone's aligned. And sometimes, unfortunately, you have to make decisions that are not, the profitable decisions, but certainly they're the ones that are aligned with, what you said is a priority for you.
Well, I love that. And I'm really, really glad I asked that question, because that's telling me right now we need to have this on in our own internal meeting and decide what beliefs are as a law firm, and the products that we want to deliver, and then the people that we want to have working for us, and make sure that we've got everybody in step. I think that's really all right. Let's go to some questions. So one of the first questions, you want to go ahead and read those, Trisha?
Yep. Oh, where did it go? Where did the queue go?
So if you want to ask a question, put it in the Q&A or raise your hand. Either way.
Yeah. Are you offering the digital copy of the Legally Raise Private Money? So that's ours. Yes, it's online on our website, which we gave
No, it's
in
not
the
on our website. It's not the digital copy, because if they go to the website, then they're going to get actual.
the physical copy. Yes, you're right.
If you want a digital copy, just buy it on Kindle. It's only like $10.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Anonymous attendee, can he explain what this step-by-step process is that he follows? We kind of covered that a little bit with the three tranches of what's in your book. Do you have anything that you want to add to that?
I mean, there's quite a process, but I think the book gives you a really good framework to follow. There's something in the book called the EASY method. EASY is an acronym, EASY. And I won't, you'll get me off on a 20-minute tangent if I go through it, but just pick up the book or go look at the book because it does walk you through effectively what my process is.
Okay, that's yeah. I think that's the best advice. And then you can highlight it. If you're like me, you're a highlighter, and you can tab it. You can refer back to it. You can create your own checklists. And I'm sure if they get the book from you, then they get the accompanying course that goes with it. Then that stuff's all going to be in there, right?
Yeah. Okay. Michael Tamburello said, how do you find the best software portal for your investment fund?
So that's a tough one because you need to remember that your portal's not for you, it's for your clients. And I know a lot of people tend to geek out on, oh, look at all these features, all this stuff. And I can tell you right now, for somebody who used to do all this stuff with nothing more than Excels and Dropbox links, these softwares are for a lot of times being used as crutches to avoid real work with your client. So don't put too much value into the software being the magic pill because the illusion of, oh, this software is just like the bank and that's why they'll invest. That's not the right format. What's really important with your software is that it's super easy for somebody to navigate. And there's a lot of good programs out there, but you don't need a ton of bells and whistles with software. You really don't. It has to be really easy for somebody to navigate. And if there's ways for people can soft commit or put their hands up to upcoming projects or updates or things like that, that's really and just a solid place for you to put a data room. There's a lot of options out there. But look, if you're just starting out, look, you don't need to spend $500 a month on a software to organize things that 3 people might look at per month. Spend your money on legal, spend your money on accounting, on getting in front of people. Make sure you can fill the funnel, so to speak. Spend your time on the front end of the house, and then the back end when you can make that look pretty later. But early days, it's a distraction from what matters.
Shiny
All right.
object.
I want to make a point here that we did type Marcin's email into the email, but I did it and then Krisha did it, and one of them was incorrect. So it's MARCIN at MARCIN, Marcin, DROZDZ. So you 2 Z's, Z before the D and after the D. Marcin Drozdz, right? Did we get that right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think we were like typing and talking and
I see a question. Ken McRoy is the man. Marcin, do you have a good story of working with him? I do. I interviewed Ken yesterday of all the days. We did an interview. It's on YouTube as well. You guys can check it out. And Ken was good enough to offer me to keynote with him at the Limitless conference in Dallas, Texas at the end of August. So it'll be him, Kiyosaki, Morby, Pace Morby, George Gammon. I'll be up there. So pretty excited about that. Best thing I can tell you about Ken is a real guy. He's just a real dude, straight shooter, humble. He's done so, like, he's the kind of guy that he's done so many things that every conversation is a new conversation because it's just so many deals, so much things. But the best thing I can tell you is the wealthiest people I know for the most part and the most accomplished people are actually the humblest. And typically they have more questions than stories and answers. So he's been a tremendous resource, and he's been a really good person to learn from.
And then Steve asks, on a related topic to finding investors, can you give a resource for how to structure a deal that is fair to both the business owner, me, And the investor is their benchmark that says X% of the amount raised, you can expect to get Y% of equity. Steve, I would highly encourage you to read my book. And if you want an in-depth deal structuring, wrong one. There's deal structuring section. It is in this book. There's a whole chapter on that for different types of deals that you might do. And there's also a chapter in there on how to split money fairly with investors and how to determine cash distributions and waterfalls. So if you get this book, How to Raise Capital for Real Estate Legally, then you want to read chapters. It's actually the whole section, what corporate structures will use, section 4. There's several chapters in there that you're going to want to read about all of that and how to structure deals. And then also, we do have a low-cost pre-syndication agreement that you can become client of our firm and be able to attend our masterminds. You also get one-on-one calls with one of our attorneys, with either me or Mola, and you're going to get, to ask all those questions about that as well. So highly recommend, if you want that, reach out to Krisha. So it's Krisha at syndicationattorneys.com. She can tell you all about our pre-syndication program, but yeah, definitely we can talk about all that stuff on our masterminds. We have them weekly. We now also have our own community called Circle, which is just our own internal clients only community where you can network with each other. You can look for things. If you're looking for people to, round out your team, you can say what your skill sets are, what skill sets you're looking for, all kinds of stuff that you can do in networking with our other clients who are all in the same boat as you, looking to raise capital. One other thing I do want to mention is that we have an important mission coming up. I am going to be hiking the John Muir Trail in less than a month. And so it's about 211 miles in the Sierra Nevada mountains. It's going to be high elevation. We are in conjunction with that doing a fundraiser. And we've decided to do our fundraiser Skin Cancer Foundation. So we do have our own website or our own landing page at the Skin Cancer Foundation. The firm is going to match up to $4,000 with your donations. Our goal is to raise $8,000. So we're asking people to pledge $1 a mile for my hike or whatever amount you can. But we have twofold mission. One, to raise money for Skin Cancer Foundation. The other is to make people aware of it. The reason we're doing this is I have had skin cancer of 2 different types in the last 6 months. And now I'm going every 3 months, including later today, to go get checked. And this was something that I totally was completely unaware of until I went to a dermatologist who said, "What's that?" So don't put yourself in that position. Untreated skin cancer does kill people, and you need to find it early. Early detection is critical to survival and to your prognosis. So make sure, if you're an at-risk group, please go to the Skin Cancer Foundation. There's a ton of educational material about this. So, get yourself checked, let your other, anybody that get checked, tell them that they need to do this. This is, really something that we all need to do. And some of us are at, greater risk than others because of the way we lived in the past, just catching up with us now, or because just we're in that, that demographic that has a higher risk. And so anyway, it's an important, passionate mission for us. And I want you guys to go along with me on the trail and help us support this important thing. Marcin, thank you so much. Todd, so sorry we didn't get to your question. Do you have time for one more question, Marcin? We've got Todd, client. Let's let Todd go ahead and ask his question live.
Mhm.
It was in the Q&A there for a minute. Todd, are you still there?
There, he just raised his hand again. How does he ask?
You should be able to go to him in the list.
Oh, allow to talk. Okay, there we go.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I was, you couldn't hear me, but I was saying, you gotta unmute me.
You gotta unmute me.
You gotta unmute me. Hey, Marcin, I originally met you with Mike DeRosiers, I don't know, a couple years ago or longer. great podcast today, all three of you. I finally found someone who lived my dream that I'll never be able to live. I'm here in Scottsdale. Oh, by the way, I talked. Ken is right here in our backyard. I popped by Ken's office yesterday, so I'm here in Scottsdale,
cool.
Arizona.
Yeah.
So you were able to have the fund and be prepared and capitalized on. I'm a longtime real estate guy here, but we all, we did the best we could. But me and all of my cohorts and investors, we all pretty much got crushed in the set 07, 08, that whole thing. And my dream since then was, man, I wish I could have had a fund and had it together and capitalized on all that. Even just a portion of it, right? Just everybody in my world got hurt and I couldn't raise money for anything, right?
Yeah.
So I was at the doctor's office, so I apologize. I missed the first 10, 15 minutes. How did you what was the very beginning for you? Because I think we're kind of cut from the same cloth. What was with the first deal you did, or what was the first funding you did? I missed that part. Sorry.
Todd, I think you're going to have to go back and re-listen to this because we're up at the top of the hour.
Okay,
so.
No problem. Yeah, I'll listen to that first few minutes. I assume you covered it, so.
Yeah, we definitely did. I'm happy to tell you the story later, but I think we've all got we got to get moving here.
No worries.
Kim, what you're doing with the walk here, I'm happy to support it as well. So congrats on putting that together. And I want to thank you guys for having me on here today.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.